Welcome on into the All Aussie Rules Football Podcast. This is episode number 31 of season 2026. Today we're taking a look at a full review of round 10. We're going to be going through all 9 matches from the weekend. Big weekend of football. A lot of games to get through. So we'll be jumping basically straight into them very soon. We'll round out the episode with a look at our Brownlow leaderboard after round 10, our MVP leaderboard after round 10, and how our footy tips went on the weekend. So that's all to come in this episode of the All Aussie Rules Football Podcast. We do 2 of these episodes every single week. The Monday episode, this one, is our review episode of the weekend's football. All 9 matches every week, unless there's buys, obviously, then less games. And then on a Thursday, we release our preview episode of the upcoming round. So the next episode of the podcast will be out on Thursday morning. First up, about 6 a.m. it goes live Australian Eastern Time. So we'll be previewing all 9 matches coming up in round 11 then. Scott Pendlebury 4-3-3 weekend. So that will be coming up on Thursday. Make sure you come back. Make sure you hit that subscribe or follow button if you haven't already. As I said, I'm John. This is the All Aussie Rules Football Podcast. Let's jump into it. Game 1 of the weekend was Thursday night, and we got a little bit of an upset to start the weekend. How good are Geelong right now? They are flying. 2 big wins in a row. Smashed Collingwood 2 weeks ago. Then head up to the Gabba, Brisbane. Play the back-to-back champions in a grand final rematch from last year, and quite comfortably win it. 41 points in the end. 17-15, 117. 11-10, 76 for the Lions. The Cats too strong in this one. First half was pretty close. It was scores level late in the second. Geelong then kicked the last 2 goals of the second quarter to give them a little bit of a break of 12 points at half time. Came out of half time and absolutely tore the game to shreds. Kicking the first 5 of the third quarter to kick 7 in a row and put the game to bed very, very quickly. Those 5 goals came in the space of about 7 or 8 real-life minutes, and it was scintillating football. It was Sean Manor going mental. He kicked 3 in a row, 3 of those in the space of about 4 minutes. Unreal performance from Geelong as a whole, but Sean Manor, Bailey Smith, and Tom Stewart, all massive, massive games in this one. Brisbane could never peg it back from there. The margin stayed similar for the rest of the way home. Looking at some team stats on this one, Geelong dominated the game. I don't think there's too many people that could argue that. They were clearly the better team out on the field on the night. Not to say that they're the better team overall, but on Thursday night they certainly were the better team. 5-day break, and they just turned up to play. Unreal performance. Plus 10 inside 50s for the Cats. Time in forward half was 53% Geelong, so quite good numbers there. Brisbane actually won contested football, but outside of contested football, so therefore uncontested football, Geelong absolutely tore this game to shreds. Intercepts, plus 14 for Geelong, so really good performance there. Led from Tom Stewart in that regard. Clearances, Brisbane did well. First possessions, Brisbane did really well, but they just did nothing with it all day. We'll get into some other interesting stats in a minute, but in terms of individual performances, shots at goal plus 7 for Geelong. 37 shots created is quite high in a game of football, so they did well there. 37 shots from 66 inside 50s, so better than 50%. Not too bad there. Brisbane also did pretty good at creating shots from their inside 50 entries, but they just didn't get it in there enough for a team that won as many clearances as they did. A little bit disappointing. I think the margin should have been a lot closer than it was. Kind of similar story to Geelong's game the week before, where maybe expected score should have been a little bit closer, but Brisbane just couldn't get their shots to even score a lot of the way. As you can see, 11 goals, 10 from 30 shots. They basically had 9 shots that didn't even score. scoring source, stoppage. We said Brisbane dominated stoppages or clearances, plus 10 in clearances, but scored a lot less from clearances. Just 28 points for Brisbane, 59 for the Cats. And then from turnover, obviously, Geelong dominated intercept numbers, and they also did well from the scoring, 58 to 40 from turnover. But it was that stoppage game. Even though Brisbane did really well from stoppage throughout the game in terms of clearing the ball, they just couldn't score from it at all. 28 points from 45 clearances. Not a great success ratio. And it was transition football for Geelong. Defensive half, 67 points to 34. So far above the average score for not just themselves, but in the AFL. Unreal performance in terms of transition from Geelong. They won the ball and they did really well with it. You look at the midfield numbers. Brisbane midfield just couldn't get it going in this game. Yeah, they did okay in clearances, but they just couldn't go with them transitionally. You look at what Bailey Smith did here. It was a huge performance from him. But across the ground, they did really, really well in that transition game. So I think that's a big factor in this game. Just all their numbers are so far above anything that you typically see, and Brisbane just couldn't stop them. As simple as that. Like defensive half to forward 50% was 50% for Geelong. That's unreal numbers. You're usually seeing something around in the 20s, maybe sneaking into the 30s. 50% is crazy. So yeah, that's where Geelong did it, and maybe one of the best performances we've seen so far from any team this year. A really, really, really good effort, in my opinion. In terms of individual players, Brownlow votes were going Bailey Smith 3, Sean Manor 2, Tom Stewart 1. I think they're clearly 1, 2, and 3 on the ground. Unreal games from all of them. Bailey Smith racked up the possessions, also contributed on the scoreboard, and did pretty much everything. Had 34 odd touches. Sean Manor also had a lot of the football, 30 touches, but also kicked 5 goals and had multiple goal assists as well. He was unreal. And Tom Stewart's loose man / also defending role was really, really good as well. He did well in the intercept game and really springboarded them to go forwards throughout this one. Highest rated players. We do all Aussie Rules rating system here. We rate every single player every single week. And for Brisbane, the top 5, Cam Rayner, Charlie Cameron, Darcy Wilmot, Levi Ashcroft, and Sammy Draper, but none of them highly rated. But you'll also notice that their star midfielders aren't in there. Lockie Neal, Dunkley, there's 2 more, Will Ashcroft, and Hugh McCluggage, all not in that list because they just didn't have enough impact on the game in this one. Geelong side of things, Bailey Smith was the highest rated player. I think that's the second highest rated game by an individual this year so far in our rating system. He was unreal throughout this whole game. His last 2 weeks have been massive. He had 40 against Collingwood. He had 34 and multiple goals here. Sean Manor, as we said, he was massive. Probably his best game of his career, maybe. Very close to if it wasn't. Tom Stewart's intercept game, huge. Shannon Neal, the unsung hero, really. Doesn't get massive goal numbers, but is always a target. Really presents well, does well in the contest, always. So he was good. And Lawson Humphries, number 5 on the ground for Geelong. And you'll notice all 5 of them are above Brisbane's best player in the game. No doubt about it. Geelong came to play and they absolutely performed really, really well in this one. So they'll be stoked with their performance. Brisbane, back to the drawing board a little bit for them. In terms of next week, Brisbane head to NG Stadium to play GWS, who are coming off a loss to West Coast. Not a must-win for Brisbane, but they do need to start putting some wins on the board. And Geelong, they head to what is game of the round, I think, at GMHBA Stadium, hosting Sydney Swans, who are absolutely flying. but so are Geelong. So that will be an absolute ripper on Saturday afternoon football, or Saturday evening football, 4:15 kickoff. So that's next week. Speaking of Sydney, that's where we head for the next one. Sydney hosting Collingwood at the SCG on Friday Night Football. We had 2 games on Friday again this week, and we do again this week coming up. Fascinating watch, this one. Sydney get over the line 11-15-81 to 10-15-75 for the Pies, who led most of the way, certainly up until just before 3/4 time. But Sydney were too strong in the end. Collingwood had an outstanding first quarter, kicking the first 5 goals of the game before Grundy got one just before quarter time. By half time, it was still 21-point margin in favour of Collingwood. And then late in the third quarter, Sydney really started to put the damage to Collingwood, kicking the last 4 of the quarter and really getting themselves that lead and a really good spot. Oscar Steen, Collingwood's ruckman on the day, went down injured midway through that third quarter, which probably did hurt Collingwood's chances a little bit, especially when you look at the numbers that the Sydney midfield led by Brodie Grundy put up in this game. But no excuses, that's football. Collingwood fought all the way to the end, but in the end, Sydney were just too strong. Got out by 12 points late. Jamie Elliott kicked a goal with about a minute to go, but Sydney held on from that point. Looking at the team stats in this one. Fascinating game, because Sydney do dominate a lot of the stats here, but Collingwood also did what they did really well. So it was a wet game. It did rain a bit. Sydney had 71 inside 50s, which is a huge number. Collingwood had 56, which is pretty good for them, in all honesty. But conceding 71 inside 50s is a lot. But their ability to not concede scores from that, 81 points from 71 inside 50s, is a tick for Collingwood overall. Time in forward half was 55% in Sydney's favour, so they did possess the ball. They won the contested football. Intercept possessions were pretty high for both teams, 81 for Collingwood, 80 for Sydney, but it's wet weather football and it's also a Sydney game, which is always typically high intercept numbers. Clearances, Sydney did win that overall, 41-38. Centre clearances was pretty even. So even though Collingwood were without a ruckman for a lot of it, they didn't lose clearance as such too badly, but we'll get into scoring from clearances very shortly because that is a telling factor in this game. Shots at goal, Sydney 30, Collingwood 27. Collingwood kicked 10 goals, 15 obviously. Sydney 11-15 from their 30 shots. Looking at score sources, Collingwood got 2 goals from kick-ins in the wet. That's a really, really good effort. But scoring from stoppages, as we said, clearance numbers were only +3 for Sydney, but they did outscore Collingwood by 30 points. 6 goals, 5-41 to Collingwood's 1 goal, 5-11. 11 points from stoppages is very, very low for anyone. Scoring from turnover is where Collingwood kept themselves in this game, and they did something that not many teams have been able to do against Sydney here, and that's score from turnover. It's one of Sydney's great abilities. They have high turnover numbers, but they don't concede that much from turnover. Well, Collingwood proved that wrong in this one. They scored 51-39, so they pretty much did the reverse of what Sydney typically do against other teams, and that's basically did what Sydney do to other teams. And that's high turnover game, score really well from your intercepts, and don't concede from your turnovers. And Collingwood did that here, whereas that's normally Sydney's role in the match. So fascinating, that one. Defensive half was 34-22 in favour of Collingwood, but that means forward half was 52-33 in favour of Sydney. There was only 2 goals from centre bounces all day, 1 goal apiece. In terms of players, Brownlow votes. Nick Blakey, we've given 3. Brodie Grundy 2. I think those 2 are interchangeable. Could go either way. Brodie Grundy obviously did win the medal for best on ground on the night. I think those two are your best two players. Got Nick Dacos third best on ground. It could also go to Heaney. It could go to McInerney. But I think just 29 touches and 2 goals might see Nick Dacos, who the umpires tend to like and give votes to. He might sneak in there for 1 vote. Highest rated players, first of all, Sydney. As we said, Brodie Grundy gets the highest rated player on the ground, just ahead of Blakey. Had a lot of contested football, had a lot of clearances, had a lot of disposals, 34 touches. He set personal bests across the board. But so did Nick Blakey, who had 900 metres gained, 8 inside 50s, 39 disposals. Kicked a great goal late in the third quarter in that run where Sydney were doing really well. So he was huge. Justin McInerney continued his great start to this season. He's been huge again, 31 touches here. Isaac Heaney just keeps chugging along as Isaac Heaney does, 32 touches. And Lewis Melican is your 5th highest rated Swan. For the Pies, much more even game across the team compared to Sydney, who had those absolute standouts that got them across the line. Collingwood were a lot more even across the team, really. Jack Crisp ends up their highest rated player. Really efficient game from him, which is what he's been doing most of the year, as well as defensive-minded ways. Braden Maynard, good across the game, as he has been most of this year. Quainer, solid down back. Nick Dacos, who had a really, really good first quarter, was best on ground at quarter time. Struggled a little bit after that, in all honesty, but ends up 4th highest rated. And Dan Houston was Collingwood's 5th highest rated player using the All Aussie Rules rating system. Had a good first half, didn't have as much impact in the second half once Sydney took control of the game. So that's a wrap on that match. Looking at next week, as we said, Sydney, they head to the Cattery, GMHBA Stadium, to play Geelong. Big game, that one. At the exact same time, up the highway, the MCG, Collingwood will be hosting West Coast in the Scott Pendlebury record-breaking game. So that will be a fascinating watch. It is, however, against what is probably game of the round. But you'd imagine there's going to be 85,000, 90,000 odd people at the MCG to watch Scott Pendlebury break the record. Moving up to Darwin, also on Friday night, we had Gold Coast v Port Adelaide. Gold Coast just dominant at Darwin, and it was that way again. Really good performance from them. 15-8, 98, 10-13, 73 for the Power. Power put up a fight throughout the first half, most of the first half, but Gold Coast put together a little spurt just before half time, which is in the end is the difference. They kicked the last 5 goals of the second quarter to give themselves a 27-point lead, and that was really the difference in the end. They only won by 25 points. They also kicked the first 2 goals of the next quarter, so they had 7-goal streak there. And even though Port had their moments throughout this game, they just that spurt of 25 minutes, 30 minutes was just too much for them to bounce back from in the end. Looking at team stats on this one, what was relevant, what was irrelevant in this game. Gold Coast +7 inside 50s. I think they just play this ground really well. They know this ground. They know how to play in these conditions, and they just get it done. It's like probably the most Gold Coast conditions, closer to Gold Coast conditions than anywhere else in the country, if that makes sense. Darwin, it's more extreme than the Gold Coast conditions, but you get slippery football, you get ugly football according to some people, but Gold Coast just adapt to it really well. Intercepts, pretty high number, as is pretty typical in Darwin, 81 to Gold Coast, 77 for Port Adelaide, so not too much of a difference. Clearances, +11 for Port Adelaide. They did really well in the clearance game, mainly stoppage clearances. They actually lost centre clearances, but still pretty good performance there. Both teams had 27 shots. Funnily enough, expected score winner was actually Port Adelaide. So some inaccurate kicking compared to some accurate kicking from Gold Coast. But in the end, Poor kicking is poor football, and Port Adelaide don't get over the line, and Gold Coast do. Both teams kicked one goal from kick-in. From stoppage, it was plus 14 for Port Adelaide. As we said, they did pretty well in the clearance game overall. Turnovers, though, is where Gold Coast won at 65-26, and a lot of that was forward half. They scored 60-49 from the forward half, 18-17 from defensive half, and centre bounce, as we said, Gold Coast were plus 4 in centre bounce clearances. They were also 3-1 from centre bounce. On to Brownlow votes. We're going Noah Anderson with 3. Zach Butters with 2. He had a great game. Christian Petrarca were going with 1. Highest rated players, highest rated on the ground. John Noble, unlucky not to go in my Brownlow votes. He may well get there. 31 touches in this one, 696 metres gained. Really good game from him again. He's had 2 big weeks up in Darwin. 2 massive games. Mac Andrew, really good down back. Bodie Uland, another one that just keeps stepping up as the season goes on. Had a really good start to the game, continued it on. Sam Collins, down back again. The backman did really well. Matt Rao had, what did he have? 23 touches. Was crucial in a lot of their scores as well. Interestingly, Noah Anderson didn't make the top 5 there, even though he had 33 touches and 958 metres gained. I would have to look into the reasons why he wasn't in the top 5, but I'm assuming there's probably some turnovers or something similar to that that hurt his rating. On the other side, Port Adelaide side of the fence, Zach Butters was their highest rated player. No surprise, he is most weeks. He is a gun. And he was again here, 35 touches, 5 tackles. By the way, Noah Anderson had 9 turnovers, which hurt his game. Jace Burgoyne was their next best. He's been going quite well this year. This was no exception, 28 touches. Darcy Byrne-Jones is 3rd highest. Then Joe Berry, who's having a pretty solid season. And Asava Ratagalia comes back into the team. Basically did nothing in the first quarter, but after that was pretty solid throughout the rest of the game. Moving on to what both these teams have next week. Gold Coast head to Melbourne, Marvel Stadium, to play North Melbourne, who have been playing well at Marvel, but coming off a really poor performance on the weekend, which we're about to get to. That will be a fascinating game. Gold Coast not always great at Marvel Stadium, obviously lost to Richmond there last year. Meanwhile, Port Adelaide, Saturday night football, they host Carlton, coming off their first win since round 1, so that will be a fascinating watch as well. Port Adelaide playing some sneaky good football over the last 5 or 6 weeks. Carlton, we don't know where they're at, but we'll see. That will be an interesting game come Saturday night football. Heading into Saturday football from the weekend being. Next up, we've got Crows hosting North Melbourne at the Adelaide Oval, and this ended up being an absolute blowout thanks to a second quarter onslaught from the Crows. First quarter was pretty tight. Kangaroos kicked the first 2 goals, only down 4 points at quarter time. But that second quarter was absolute demolition job. Probably the second biggest demolition we've seen of a quarter this year. Maybe even number 1. Sydney v Carlton was pretty damaging in opening round. But this was incredible. 10 goals, 4 plays, 0-2 was the final score for the second quarter alone. And they only won by 68 points. So basically 95% of that was done in that second quarter. Third quarter, they also kicked the first couple as well to really extend it out. And it looked like at one point that maybe it would end up being a 100-point smashing. It got close to 90 points. I don't think it quite cracked 90 before North Melbourne finished the game reasonably well. They kicked 4 goals to 2 in the last quarter, but the damage was done. That second and third quarter was 14 goals to 2. And yeah, it was one-way traffic for a lot of it. It was very, very easy at times for Adelaide, which is a slight concern for North Melbourne going forward, I think. Obviously, One bad game doesn't mean a hell of a lot in the context of a season. We mention it regularly that teams do have bad games. It doesn't mean the end of the world. That was certainly the case last year. Geelong had a few stinkers. Brisbane had some stinkers. They were the two teams that played off in the grand final in the end. But obviously, I don't think North are capable of being a grand final team, but they're certainly capable of better than what we saw from them in this one. So don't completely write them off just yet. We'll see how they go this weekend. Big game coming up for them. Team stats in this one. It was efficiency from Adelaide. 49 to 44 inside 50s for the match. So only +5 inside 50s. 49 inside 50s for 37 shots for Adelaide. That's efficiency rate that I don't think I've ever seen, to be honest. That's incredible. Ridiculous. The ability to get a shot every time they went forward. North's defence just had no answer. Was it moving through the midfield too easy? Maybe. But at the same time, they couldn't stop them. It's pretty simple. I think it was in the second quarter alone, it was 16 inside 50s for Adelaide, and they kicked 10 goals. That's just a crazy efficiency rate. Contested football went the way of the Crows. No real surprise there. Intercepts, pretty even. 53-51. It was perfect conditions on the day. Clearance numbers +9 for the Crows. So they did get their hands on the ball and get it out of the middle quite well, or out of the congestion at least quite well. Expected score, no surprise that the Crows were the winner. Maybe not as much as they did win by. And then score sources. 2 goals from kick-in for the Crows. Pretty good effort there. 55-10 from stoppage. Is a pretty big domination. But as we said, they were +9 in total clearances for the game. And then turnover 66-55, so pretty even there. Defensive half was 40-20. Forward half scoring is where the Crows did their damage. 77 points. That's massive numbers. To 44 for the Kangaroos. And 2 goals to 0 from centre clearances. Even though centre clearances difference for the match was 1, 14-13 in favour of the Crows. All that being said, Adelaide were just way too good for them on the day. Brownlow votes were going to Isaac Rankin 3, James Peatling with the 2 votes, and Jordan Dawson with the 1. All Adelaide players. Highest rated players on the ground, Sam Berry. Another great game from him. He's putting together a good little patch, especially as like that defensive sort of hard tackling midfielder. Jordan Dawson, huge, as he always is when Crows are on. 24 touches, 500 metres gained. Kicked a really good left foot goal. Isaac Rankin, his last 2 weeks have been huge. Josh Worrell, 4th. He's putting together another really good season. And Toby Murray was 5th highest rated. For the Kangaroos, Paul Curtis kicked one of only 3 goals in the first quarter, kicked 2 of their 4 goals in the last quarter. For 3 out of 9 for the game is their highest rated. Luke Parker 2nd. Luke Davis-Yanaki 3rd highest rated. Tristan Cherry, I think he got beaten in the ruck overall. And Colby McKercher 5th. But an 86.74 as your 5th highest rated player is not ideal at all. Next week, the Crows have a 5-day break into a game down in Tassie against Hawthorn at Utah Stadium. It's going to be a tough backup for them. Coming off a really good performance, though, Hawks need a win after a few tough ones. It's at a ground that Hawthorn are really good at, so that's going to be a tough game for the Crows. There's no doubt about that. Kangaroos are hosting Gold Coast, as we said before. That will be at Marvel Stadium, where they've been really good so far, the Kangaroos, but they do need to bounce back after a disappointing performance on Saturday. Next up, what looked like maybe could have been game of the round on paper ends up being a one-sided affair, really. Certainly in the second half, Melbourne blew the Hawks away at the MCG. 18-12, 120, 12-9, 81. 39-point winners are the Demons. As we said, pretty close for the first half. 6 points in it at half-time. Extended out to 20 points for three-quarter time. And then early in the fourth, the Demons kicked the first 4 of the final quarter. first five, sorry. They kicked one right on the start of the quarter, 21 seconds in, and then the next four as well. So 5 in a row there, 6 in a row total, just to blow Hawthorn away and end up winning by 39. Yeah, the Hawks did manage the last couple goals of the game, but too little, too late. As the Demons, they're flying. They play the MCG really well this year, but I think they just play football really well so far this year. It's been fascinating to watch. Caught a lot of people, including myself, by surprise, I think, how good the Demons have been this year. Their improvement has been insane, especially when you consider losing Oliver, losing Petrarca, losing Stephen May, some stalwart warts of the club, and these young players are just getting the job done. Stats for this game, inside 50 is pretty level, +1 for the Hawks. Contested football dominated by the Demons. Intercepts pretty level, 72 to 70. Clearances +4 for the Demons. Centre clearances +5 for the Demons. Shots at goal 29 to 25, so they did shoot a lot more accurately. The Demons 18 goals from 29 shots compared to 12 goals from 25 for the Hawks. No scores from kick-ins in this game. From stoppage, it was accuracy that was huge for Melbourne. 10 goals to 62 to 32, 20, so +42 points from stoppage for the Demons, even though only +4 clearances, +40 points is huge. And turnovers actually was won by Hawthorn in terms of scoring, 61-58. Defensive half, Hawks won 45-42. Forward half was all the Demons, 52-30. And as we said, they did win centre clearances +5. They also won scoring from centre clearances 26-6. So really good performance there by the Demons across the board. They were really good. Brownlow votes were gone. Tom Sparrow 3, Jack Steele 2, Dylan Moore with 1 for the Hawks. Highest rated players on the ground. Daniel Turner does it again for the Demons. He's having, we rated him quite highly last year while he was playing, but he's been really good all year long, and this was one of his best. He's highest rated, just ahead of Maxi Gawn in the ruck, who absolutely tore the 2 Hawthorn ruckmen to pieces, who ended up both very low ranked. I know they basically split game time between them, but neither of them had much impact on the game, whereas Max Gawn obviously did. Tom Sparrow, 3rd highest rated player for the Demons. He was good. Had plenty of the football, 27 touches. Jake Lever down back, solid game from him. And Harrison Petty, who kicked a few goals early in this game, was good. For the Hawks, as I said, Dylan Moore was their best player. I don't think there's too many arguments there. He was really good late too, trying to keep him going in this game. Had 27 touches, multiple scores. James Sicily, 2nd highest rated. Josh Weddle played more key defence this game than normal, or so far this year compared to normal. Jarman Impey, 4th, and then Carl Armon was their 5th highest rated player as the Demons run away by 39 points. Huge win for them. Hawks in a little bit of a rough patch. Last couple of weeks, a draw and then 2 losses. They have Adelaide down in Tassie this week. Really good opportunity for them to beat a decent team and to get themselves back on the winners list and get their season going again. 5-day break, obviously, for both teams. But Hawthorn do play Utah Stadium down in Launceston very, very well. So we kind of expect to see them play, bounce back in this week, you'd have to think. But that's still 6th on the ladder. So even though the last 3 weeks have not been great, still not in a terrible spot. Melbourne have to head to Marvel. So they don't get their great stay at their great ground of this year so far, which is the MCG. Marvel Stadium, the Dogs, they'll start favourites, which you wouldn't have thought at the start of the year, even after 4 weeks. But the Doggies are struggling. They weren't great against Carlton last week. Marvel Stadium does put it into the Doggies' side a little bit more than it would have been if this was at the MCG. It would be a no-brainer. But the Demons are flying, and it's very hard to tip against them right now. Speaking of the Doggies, Saturday night, they headed to Marvel Stadium against the Blues, and the Blues got the win 10-14, 74-98, 62 for the Dogs. The Blues dominated the final quarter in every stat category pretty much, and ran away winners after trailing at three-quarter time. It was pretty close most of the way through this game, up until three-quarter time where the Dogs led by 8 points. But 5-goal 3 to 2-goal 1 final quarter is all that the Blues needed as they run away with their first win since round 1. Looking at the team stats in this one. In the end, it's a domination of inside 50s for Carlton. A lot of that damage was done in the final quarter. Plus 17, just 38 inside 50s for the Doggies in a game. That's incredibly low. Really, really low. So bad performance there by the Dogs. Intercepts, pretty even. Clearances, Carlton 1 plus 9. Centre clearances plus 5 for Carlton. So they did well across the board there. Shots at goal, 24 for Carlton for 10 goals. 16 for the Bulldogs for 9 goals. They just couldn't create shots at goal, the Bulldogs, and certainly couldn't late in this game. So really disappointing performance from the Bulldogs, I think. I know Tim English wasn't there. They had to have Rory Lobb coming back from injury in the ruck, but I don't think you can use that excuse too much. Anyway, score sources. Pardon me. Stoppage 40-21 in favour of the Blues. Turnover was pretty much level 32-33. However, the Blues were very inaccurate, kicking 4 goals 8. Defensive half was Bulldogs 24 to Carlton 16. Forward half was the Blues 37-31, and then from centre bounce, 13 centre clearances for 3-3 for the Blues, 8 centre clearances for 1-1 for the Dogs. Brownlow votes. Paddy Cripps gets the 3. Was huge throughout, but certainly late in this game. That last quarter, they obviously had their best quarter, and he was good through that period. Ollie Florent, who interestingly enough was the reverse, was really good through the first 3 quarters, maybe not as big in the last quarter, but he gets the 2 from us, and Matt Carroll gets the 1 vote. Highest rated players, Ollie Florent ends up on top with 28 touches, was really, really good. His best game of the year so far, I think. Matt Carroll, second highest rated. Really good performance from him. 100% disposal efficiency. Paddy Cripps gets third highest player. Really good in the contest and when it mattered most. Harry Mackay presented really well as he has the last 2 weeks now. He's 4th, and then Lockie Cohen is 5th. For the Dogs, it's Bailey Dale who had 31 touches in this one. When a good disposal efficiency, had plenty of metres gained, did what Bailey Dale does best. Joel Frazier is next, then Rory Lobb, who we said was in the ruck. Riley Sanders, starting to play some decent football. His start to the game again, 2 weeks in a row, was really good. Maybe not as good throughout the rest of the game. And Aaron Norton presented, kicked a couple goals, but maybe not enough across the whole context of a game. Yeah, that's that. Carlton just too good in the end. Who would have thought? Put together a full game. I wonder what Vossi was thinking watching that game. Wondering where that's been the rest of the year. But you can't dwell on the past. Carlton head to Adelaide Oval for Port Adelaide. Big game Saturday night this week. They'll be interesting watch to see if they can string together 2 in a row. Bulldogs don't play till Sunday afternoon where they play Melbourne at Marvel Stadium. It'll be a tough one for them based on what we've seen so far from both teams. Heading into Sunday football, we kick off with the Bombers hosting Fremantle at the MCG. One-way traffic early days, certainly accuracy-wise, and the Dockers kind of just put it in cruise control in the second half, I think, and the Bombers clawed it back a little bit, but way too little too late. Half-time, it was 10-6, 66 to 1-8, 14. What's that, 52-point margin? Poor kicking in front of goal from the Bombers. So they did win the second half, kicking 7 goals to 6, but it was damage done, in all honesty. Poor kicking in front of goal. Maybe they could have been a bit closer, but in the end, Fremantle certainly looked the better team, and I think their class prevailed throughout most of this. Key stats, inside 50s was only +5 for Fremantle, but as we said, that second half was a bit of a non-event in a lot of ways. Intercepts, dead level 64. Clearances was +4 for Essendon, +4 from centre clearances for Essendon. Jumping into shots at goal, +5 for Fremantle. Expected score had them winning by 25 points. So a lot closer than it was, but it is what it is. Scores from kick-ins, 2 goals for Fremantle, nothing for Essendon. From stoppage, even though Essendon put up a really good battle in the clearance game, scoring from stoppage is where Fremantle won this one, 54-24, so +30 right there, and then turnover was only +1 for Fremantle. Defensive half was +20 for the Dockers, 38-18. Forward half was 51-29, and then centre bounce, Essendon won centre bounces +4, but scoring from centre bounces actually went to Fremantle +1 point. So make of that what you will. Brownlow votes were gone. Paddy Voss with 3. He kicked 5 goals against his old club. Murphy Reid putting together some good form. I've given the 2 votes to, and Caleb Sarong the 1 vote. Best highest rated players for the Bombers, it was Andy McGrath. Had a great season. Most of that was in the second half. Would have liked to see a bit more from him in the first half, but it is what it is. Darcy Parish, number 2 for the Dons. 25 touches in this one. Sullivan Roby putting together a very good first season. His second half was good. Zach Merritt is number 4. And then Will Setterfield in his first game of the year. Good second half after a pretty terrible first half. For the Dockers, Carl Warner, top-rated player on the ground. Really good game from him. Could get Brownlow votes as well. 27 touches, sorry. Paddy Voss, as we said, kicked 5. Caleb Sarong did what Caleb Sarong does best. 24 touches, a lot of pressure acts, a lot of contested football, a lot of clearances. Shea Bolton, great season from him. He started and finished the game really strongly, and Murphy Reid is 5th. Getting plenty of the football, kicking goals, playing some good football. Next week, the Dockers play Friday night, or this week, against the Saints at Optus Stadium. That will be to set a record, club record, if they can win that one, for the most wins in a row in club history. That would be massive for them. You'd expect them to win, but Saints haven't been playing bad. And also on Friday night, so both these two teams have 5-day breaks, going from Sunday to Friday night football. The Bombers play in Dreamtime at the G Friday night against the Tigers. So 17 v 18, potentially a battle of the wooden spoon. And the Bombers are going into that favourites, so that will be a fascinating watch. Obviously, Richmond have a lot of injuries right now, and the list just keeps getting longer, unfortunately, for the Tigers. Speaking of, that is our next game, Saints v Tigers. Both of these teams also have 5-day breaks going into next week as well. So all 4 teams from those 2 games play crossover for this weekend. The Saints 2 strong, 16-13, 109. Tigers 11-7, 73. Saints win it by 36 points. I think that scoreline could have been a lot bigger, the margin, if we're being completely honest. Probably a little bit kind to the Tigers there, that scoreboard. 26 points at halftime, out to 33 at three-quarter time. And it just never kind of got more, but it always felt like St Kilda were just miles ahead of the Tigers throughout this game. Stats, team stats, plus 26 inside 50s for the Saints, so dominated that. Time in forward half, 62% for the Saints. They absolutely dominated territory. They looked after the football really well. They just did everything really well, except for putting that score on the board. Maybe not quite as damaging as you'd like to see. Clearances plus 14 for the Saints. Centre clearances plus 6 for the Saints. It was just domination across the board. They had almost double the amount of shots, 35 to 18. For once, Richmond actually kicked straight, which is very uncommon for them. Scoring-wise, score source-wise, from stoppage, as we said, Saints dominated stoppages, and they got an extra 16 points from that source, 49 to 33. Turnover was 54 to 40. And then Origin from the back half was 34-21 in favour of the Saints. Forward half, though, 62 to 28. So when they could get that ball starting in the forward half, they did really well, kicking 9 of their 16 goals from that avenue. Biggest surprise, I guess, on the stat sheet, though, plus 6 centre clearances for the Saints, but they got outscored from centre bounce. Richmond managed 4 goals straight from 11 centre clearances. So when they won the centre clearance, they used it quite well, the Tigers, whereas the Saints only got 2 goals won from their 17 centre clearances in this game. Brownlow votes Hugo Garcia gets the 3. He's been outstanding. A really good game here from him. 25 touches, really good contested football, really good across the ground. Max Hall is number 2. Good consistent game from him as well. 26 touches, sorry. Not always the best efficiency, but with his disposal, but still a good game. And Jack McRae, we've given the 1 vote to in this one. Highest rated players, Hugo Garcia ends up number 1 on the ground. Great game from him. Max Hall number 2. Jack Sinclair is number 3 for his 29 touches. Then Jack McRae, and then Jack Carroll is number 5 for the Saints. For the Tigers, Jack Ross continues his streak of every single game so far this year being in the top 5 players for the Tigers. Really, really good game from him again. He racks up the disposals. He needs to work on his kicking skills a little bit, I think. Although he did kick it a bit more often today than typical for him. But as he's getting to those years where he should be peaking, getting towards his best, and he's starting to show some really good signs. If they can fit in a couple puzzle pieces around him, maybe. Ben Miller, second highest for them, then Nick Vlauston. Jaden Short and James Tracy is your 5th highest rated Tig in this game. As we said, both teams heading to Friday night football. Saints will be heading over to Optus Stadium for Fremantle. That's going to be a really tough one for them. Meanwhile, the Tigers will be hosting Dreamtime at the G against the Bombers in a really big game Friday night in terms of who will win the Wooden Spoon in 2026. Both of those teams at the moment looking like they are the number 1 and 2 seed for that. Final game of the weekend was your West Coast Eagles hosting the Giants, and the Eagles walk away with the victory, 13-10-88, 10-11-71 for the Giants. Fascinating watch. Giants led early through the first quarter. Second quarter was one-way traffic as the Eagles kicked 6 goals to 2 to take a lead of 14 points into half-time. They were up by 20 at one point there. Then the third quarter was the reverse for a big chunk of it. The Giants dominated early there, kicking 5 goals to 2 for the quarter, leading by 4 points at three-quarter time after the West Coast Eagles kicked the last goal of the third quarter. And then the final quarter, the Eagles just kept getting it done. The Giants were out by 10 points early on in the quarter, but then it just was one-way traffic as the Eagles kicked the final 4 goals, including one after the siren through Murdoch, who played a really, really good defensive role, defensive forward sort of role on Lockie Whitfield. And yeah, the Eagles just get it done. Really, really good performance there. Kicking towards one end, they were especially good kicking. They had 10 out of their 13 goals to the one end throughout this one, so really good performance that. Yeah, team stats. For this one. Overall, pretty even-ish in a lot of ways, but +5 inside 50s Eagles. Contested football was actually won by the Giants. Intercepts was pretty level, +2 for the Giants. Clearance numbers, +2 for the Giants again, but centre clearances was +1 for the West Coast Eagles. Total shots was a massive domination, though. 31 shots for the Eagles, 23 for the Giants. So it could have been even worse for the Giants, if we're being completely honest. 31 shots from 50 inside 50s, good ratio there for the Eagles. 23 shots from 45 inside 50s for the Giants isn't bad, just not as good as West Coast in the end. Scoring sources, 36-40 in favour of the Giants from stoppage. From turnover, West Coast Eagles controlled it, 52-30. Defensive half, not much scoring, and that's probably where a lot of the issue for the Giants was here, because that's typically where they score quite heavily from. It was 1 goal apiece from the defensive half. They just couldn't manufacture anything to scores. They couldn't transition the ball across the ground to even get it into the 50, but to then get a score, they just couldn't do it in this one. So really, really well planned, I think, from West Coast, and executed that plan quite well to stop that run, because that's what the Giants do. If you can stop their scoring from that back half, or their really good transition from that back half, you're limiting what they can do in the match quite well. Scores from forward half was 55-42. Centre bounce was 25-20. So just a really good all-round performance. West Coast Eagles, well done. Brownlow votes, we're going Harley Reid, who gets the 3, maybe his best game of his career, in AFL level at least. Another one that potentially played the best game of his AFL career, Bailey Williams. Where did that come from? Outstanding performance. And Clayton Oliver, we've given the 1 vote to. Highest rated players, Harley Reid, best on ground. There's no doubt about it. He was sensational throughout this match. Bailey Williams, number 2, fantastic in the ruck. Tim Kelly, having a good season, sneaky good season, Tim Kelly. Then Liam Duggan, and then Tyler Young in a 5th highest rated player. Eagle. For the Giants, it's Clayton Oliver on top, racked up possessions and clearances as he has been all year. 38 touches, in fact. Harvey Thomas was really good throughout this one. Then Laverde is your 3rd highest. Himmelberg 4th, and then Kieran Briggs in the ruck is 5th. But as you can see, he got outplayed by Bailey Williams without a doubt in this one. Both these teams now head to West Coast, obviously head to Melbourne to play MCG. Collingwood on Saturday afternoon. Harley Reid's 50th game should be a fascinating watch. They'll obviously be massive outsiders in that, but I certainly wouldn't write them off. If they can play like this, who knows? Unfortunately, we just don't see this often enough just yet. But it's a positive sign. Giants host the Lions at NG Stadium on Sunday afternoon in a game that you'd expect Brisbane to be favourites and probably be winning based on what we saw. Certainly on last weekend, Giants just weren't much chop. So that's a wrap on all 9 matches. Just a quick look at the ladder post round 10. We've got Sydney Swans and Freo on 9 wins, 1 loss, leading the way right now. Sydney haven't lost since like round 3 or 4, whichever round that was, against Hawthorn. Fremantle haven't lost since round 1 against Geelong, so they've won their last 9 games. They're flying. 2 games ahead of 3rd on the ladder, which is Geelong and Gold Coast and Melbourne, all on 7 wins, 3 losses. Then you drop half a game down to Hawthorn, who are 6 wins and a draw in 6th spot. Brisbane, Adelaide, both sitting 6 wins, 4 losses after 10 games, 7th and 8th on the ladder. Then you got St Kilda and Bulldogs, 5 wins, 5 losses after 10 games, 9th and 10th on the ladder. Collingwood are 11th with 4.5 wins after 10 games. Then you got North Melbourne, 4 wins, 6 losses, having lost their last 4 games in 12th. The Giants in 13th, 4 wins, 6 losses, also going win-loss, win-loss, win-loss of recent form. Port Adelaide are 14th, 3 wins, 7 losses. How different their season could be if they had have snuck a couple of those close ones over the line. West Coast get their 3rd win of the season, so they've already tripled last year's win tally. They're 15th on the ladder. Then you got Carlton in 16th, getting their 2nd win of the season, and putting a little bit of a gap percentage-wise as well on the bottom 2 teams. 17th is the Bombers, 1 win, 9 losses, pretty low percentage, and Richmond also 1 win, 9 loss, even lower percentage post round 10. Jump into our Brownlow leaderboard after round 10, and this is how the top 15 or so players stack up. One-way leader, outright leader at the moment, is Nick Dacos on 18 votes. As we see it, Zach Butters on 17, right behind him, and then Bailey Smith, who's having a sneaky good season. Maybe not even sneaky. He's just playing good football. And Lockie Neal also on 16 votes. That's your top 3. After that, equal 5th is Harry Sheasel and Bontempelli, both on 13 votes. Then Cripps, Newcomb, Wangani Malira and Oliver all on 12 votes are equal 7th. And then equal 11th is Bolton, Sarong, Petraka. Luke Davies-Yanaki, Isaac Heaney and Harley Reid has moved on to the leaderboard after his 3 votes on the weekend. MVP leaderboard after round 10 is a little different if you're new around here. We give votes to the top 5 players for each team each game. So as we went through, highest rated players in each game. Winning team get 10, 8, 6, 4 and 2 votes for the top 5 players. Losing team get 5, 4, 3, 2 and 1. Draw matches, both teams get the split, the difference basically. So 7.5, 6, 4.5, 3, 1.5. So after round 10, it's Max Gawn of the Demons leading the way on 64. Bailey Smith second on 61. Lukey Jackson 58. Didn't get any votes this week though, the big L Jackson. 4th, Brody Grundy 57, equal with Bontempelli also on 57. 6th is Callum Wilkie on 52, who I think for the 2nd week in a row hasn't polled votes. 7th is Petraka and Luke Davies-Yanaki on 44, so a bit of a gap behind 6th place. Zach Butters in 9th on 43, Isaac Heaney 10th with 42. Check out how my tips went on the weekend. Not as good as the previous couple of weeks, let's be honest. It was a tough week, couple upsets. We tipped Brisbane by 16. Cats got it done by 41 in a really, really good performance from them. We said the Swans by 24, they only won by 6, but at least we got the team right. Gold Coast, we said 15, they won by 25, so not too far off. We said the Crows by 25, they won by 68. We had the Hawks by 9, the Demons got it done by 39. We thought the Bulldogs were going to get it done by 13. We did suggest that this was the one that we were most likely to get wrong. So it turns out we got more than just this one wrong, but we did get this one wrong. We said 13, it was 12 points to the Blues. We had the Dockers by 26, they won by 43. We had the Saints by 37, they won by 36 points. And then the final game, we said the Giants by 21, ended up being the Eagles by 17. We go 5 of 9, 63 out of 90 on the season so far. And that's pretty much all we've got for you in this episode. Before you leave, don't forget to hit the follow or subscribe button on your preferred platform for podcasts. We go on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts every single week, twice every single week. We'll be back on Thursday with the next episode, round 11 preview, episode number 32. So make sure you come back, check that one out. Go check out all the social medias. We do Team of the Week, we do rookie rankings, we do ratings, we do everything, match reviews, all of that. TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky, you name it, we got it. All Aussie Rules everywhere. Go search it up. I'm John. I've talked for an hour. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you got something out of it. Fascinating weekend of football. We'll be back on Thursday, as I said. Till then, enjoy your week.